you want to know?
Yeah! Yes! Oh yeah!
Of course you would want to know how Hershey came to be. I'm Olivia and this is Catherine. And we're here to present you some history about Hershey.
But before we get into that juicy stuff, we gotta tell you the boring stuff in the beginning so it all makes sense.
Okay, so obviously it began when this guy, Milton Hershey, oh, that's not Milton Hershey, that's Homer Simpson. No. This guy, Milton Hershey, was born on September 13, 1857 in Pennsylvania.
He wasn't the richest man. In fact, he was poor. And as to schooling, Milton had very little of it because his mother thought that books, as ridiculous as it sounds, would ruin her sleep.
And as to his career, it took a while for him to become the successful man he was. To begin with, he had a 4-year apprenticeship when he was a teenager for candy making. And after it, he attempted to start his own candy making business for 6 whole years, but sadly failed.
After he moved to Denver, Colorado and found a confectioner that taught him how to make caramel using milk. Then he attempted to start a business in New York and failed again.
But he never gave up, so he came back to his hometown, started his business there, and it became very popular.
The current name for his company was Milton Hershey's Lancaster Caramel Company.
In 1894, he was faced with a decision that has changed its path. He wondered if he should add a layer of chocolate onto his caramel. So, in the end, he bought some machinery from Chicago and produced baking chocolate, cocoa, and sweet chocolate coatings for his caramels.
He was so successful that he soon realized that his business was in chocolate, not caramel.
Now he was known as the Hershey Chocolate Company. Although he was fairly rich now, but in 1895 he thought that the real money was in milk chocolate.
With this thought, he bought a milk processing plant on a family farm and began testing formulas.
The thing with them is that Milton wanted the product to be manufactured efficiently, cheap, yet maintain its high quality.
Finally, in 1899, he came up with it and became the first American to produce milk chocolate.
His chocolate company life wasn't so smooth when it came to the beginning of World War I in 1914, because the European beet sugar he used to produce his milk chocolate was now scarce, so he needed a more dependable source.
So, he settled on a plantation in Cuba that produced sugarcane, so he was still doing pretty well.
At the end of World War II, he no longer needed it because his old sugar was good to use, so he sold the plantation to the Cuban Atlantic Sugar Company.
Since then, the company has been taking stepping stones to get where they are now. There are no more significant events,
besides their logo that will be mentioned later,
that has changed the way it runs, so it's time to talk about the products themselves.
First of all, I'm sure plenty of you have heard of Hershey Kisses, if not all. Am I right? Am I right?
Yeah!
Okay, well they were invented in 1907, but at the time they were hand-wrapped in foil. But in 1921, machinery was bought for it to be done automatically, and the plume, which is the paper that comes off the top, was also added at this time.
Although these chocolates were not produced from 1942 to 1949 due to rationing foil during and right after World War II, they are still very popular.
The foil on the outside of them started to be available in different colors starting in 1962. And now we shall go on to the Reese's Peanut Butter Cups.
In 1923, a guy named H.B. Reese decided to start his own candy company in his basement.
It made a variety of different candies, but 5 years later he came up with the idea of peanut butter being covered in milk chocolate.
The chocolate he was using was purchased from the Hershey Chocolate Company.
During World War II, he stopped making his other products and focused on Reese's Peanut Butter Cups.
In the end, he decided that he could not be so dependent on a single product, so he sold his corporation to the Hershey Chocolate Company.
Since we're running out of time, we'll leave the product segment with that, and it's time to move on to the logo.
It started on August 1st when the company adopted a symbol for its trademark.
The symbol at this time was the baby in a cocoa bean pod. The baby went through many tweaks until being changed to the block lettering we are familiar with today.
At some points, it was shown that the baby was holding a cup of cocoa, a chocolate bar, and more items in his hand.
The Baby and the Bean logo was officially retired in 1869 when the company was recognized as Hershey Food Corporation.
Finally, we are closing to a finish, but right now it's time for a fun fact and a question.
The fact for today is that did you know that the Reese's Pieces candies were in the movie E.T.? If you didn't, now you do.
Also, when we say question, the first person to shout out the answer gets a special treat, and you have 5 seconds to answer it.
Today's question is, what's the Twizzler slogan? If you guessed the twist you can't resist, you're right. If you didn't, you're wrong.
Okay, well thank you for tuning into Info Blaster. The next time we will be posting a video will be...
Never!
Because we're sadly discontinuing our channel.
We hope you enjoyed this blast of information, and if you didn't, that's just too bad. Thank you and goodbye!